Hey, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Olivia.
Hi. Oh my
How
gosh,
are
now
you?
I see myself too on the TV. That's funny.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
Are you home for the summer?
I am home for the summer. I'm excited. I'll be back for I think at least one meeting in July, but for a good period. I'm excited to
Nice. What do
yeah.
you do in the summer?
I'm working as a research assistant for a lady getting her PhD in sustainable tourism up here, which should be cool. And then I'm just putting some work in on my senior thesis that I'll be starting in the fall. Oh, goodness. Did I freeze for you guys? You froze for me. Shoot.
Hear you.
Oh,
Oh, there she is.
you're back. You froze.
Okay. Yeah, you guys froze for me too. Okay.
But we did hear about your cool job.
Oh, awesome.
That's very,
I'm
that sounds
excited.
great. Is it full time?
No, it's not full time. It's part
That's
time,
perfect.
and I'm just gonna be conducting some interviews for her. So it should be relatively chill. I'm excited to like get to take a deep breath this summer. So no, froze again. Hmm.
Olivia?
Yes, you did freeze.
I'm gonna text her, try calling in.
Oh, now she looks better. Oh,
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out which
Olivia,
Wi-Fi.
can you hear it?
I can hear you now, but you keep freezing.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Got that late afternoon traffic, huh? Getting
Yeah,
out
well,
here.
I just got out too late.
Well, yeah, getting ready to go. Other trip.
Yeah, yeah.
And here's your like haircut.
She's
Can you hear us?
I can hear you now. I am gonna try joining on my phone audio
You have not
wise.
entered any numbers.
cool. Sure. Yeah. I wonder whose fault it is. If it's us or one person.
Are we live?
I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Sydney, are there any new updates on the chicken front?
Mm, sure, not
Oh,
really.
Jay just texted me. It's live.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't really mind if we ask that question, but it's just in case there was anything.
Yeah.
We can talk about it later.
Question.
Yeah, no, we can talk about it later for sure, but yes, there's updates.
Oh, it's connected. It's on Wi-Fi.
Can you all hear me?
Can you guys hear us?
Yes.
I think we should be ready to go then.
Can you all hear me over my phone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I will be following along on the agenda, although you can't see me.
Ready to.
Okay, it's June 20th, 2024, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Isla Vista Community Services District Finance Committee to order. The meeting is being recorded, we think, we hope.
It is.
And I'll ask you, Jonathan, to do roll call.
Director Brandt here. Director Topliff
Here.
Director Craig.
Here.
Great. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Anascoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. At this time, any member of the public may speak on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Finance Committee that are not on the agenda. The committee will not take any action on any item not on the agenda except as provided by law. And I don't think we have any members of the public here.
We do not.
Pardon me?
We do not. I just saw someone maybe walk in. I don't think so.
Saw what was going on, turned right around and walked out. Okay, then we'll move into the discussion and action items with discussion 3.1, which is 2023-2024 estimated actuals.
Okay, well, since it's only a few days before the end of the year, I have new or estimated actuals, and then we'll give you the actuals at the next finance committee meeting, because they're going to change. Now, I'm not going to say a lot, but they're going to be fine-tuned a lot. So it's not going to be necessarily more expenditures, but just more fine-tune of where everything being in the right place. So the estimated actuals, we're looking to end the year essentially $156,000 short from where we had planned to be. Some of it a third of it is from the utility tax being under what we projected, but a good amount of it comes from other sources, including, not having the collection fee we had planned for, not having as many community center reservation revenue as we planned to have. Compost sales was under. These were all like new things we were planning for, so we didn't have great estimates. And then there's 13,800 in government agency revenue we probably won't receive this year. I'm trying to figure out exactly what it was for, but our projection is for that to come in just 14,000 under. So it adds up to 156,000 less than we planned, but the utility tax, our ongoing revenue, is only 45,000 of that.
Oh, interesting.
Our expenses are estimated to be 2.1 million, 40,000. And that is gonna give us a surplus balance of 54,000. And this really happened only because we did freeze spending or dramatically slow it down. We actually hit a lot of our salary targets in our budget, or slightly exceeded them in some areas, but we did not have salary savings necessarily this time. We had some, so I don't want to say we had none, but it wasn't the same kind of saving we've seen in the past in salaries. So a lot of it did come from us slowing down our spending.
So that's quite a swing.
It's a swing. We were gonna have -30 at one point, but we ended up with 54,000. Our tax revenue also didn't go down as much as it was looking like the direction it was going. It leveled out or it went back to a little less than normal, but not dramatically lower. But still, 54,000 is a third less of the end balance from last year. So last year we had 168,000 positive at the end of the year. So it's still way less than what we're used to, and costs are only going up. So just because it says 54 positive now, you'll see in the proposed budget, salaries go up every year, for example. So it's a good situation. It's money to help us handle next year, essentially.
And in those austerity moves, are there any areas where we have cut back on spending that are potentially going to create some heartburn for us later that we should be aware of?
This was all for this year, but I think it all ended up being okay so far. Like we haven't necessarily eliminated anything. We just have been more prudent in checking. Like, do we really need this? Is this 100% needed expense, and is there a cheaper way to do it, or can we just live without? So it's kind of a different calculation than what we budget for next year, because we do need to budget for what we need. This year we just wanted to come under a little bit, which we for the most part did. I think it overall came out under what we had planned in most line items. Some we had no choice and had to go because of contracts and other obligations we had, but things like equipment or furniture or marketing, even, we took it easy. Even though we had the budget, we didn't spend.
And we're pretty poised for another really good move out operation this year.
Yeah, we're fully spending that budget. We're 20,000 out of 20,000. But that's also because we got money from IVCSD specifically to make that happen. So we do want to spend that 100%, but it's looking like it's working good.
Well, we've done such a good job that we want to continue that.
Yeah.
Can you go over again the parts of the $150,000 shortfall and can you zoom in when you explain it, just so I can see the numbers?
And it is actually not as bad as even 150,000. So 45,000 is from the tax. Okay. 33,000 is from our community center rentals not materializing, or our compost collection fee for this fiscal year. 13,864. I'm trying to completely investigate this still. I haven't been able to find the root of it, but essentially we had budgeted 539 for our income from IVCSD, but after looking through the numbers over and over, we're really going to get 526, and that should clear us out from there. So it's a small anomaly, this 13,000, on why it's under the budgeted. It could have been I put in the wrong number for the budgeted, but the next is our sales came in, 20,000 under. Our sponsorships for the community festivals also, we planned for 10, we got only 1,000. And
Just quick question. The sales came in, so that's compost sales,
this is compost and move-in market sales.
move-in market sales. Okay.
Combined. So, but then we got 4,000 we didn't plan on getting from our credit card rebates
Wow.
for our spending. So that was, bonus. And then we're not using 88,000 from the community planning. So that's not coming out of our reserves, but that's, so yeah, it's technically not 156, it's 156 minus 88,000, so 68,000 under our plan.
And Olivia, can you see okay? And do you have any questions or comments?
Nope. No, I'm good. I'm following along on the spreadsheet. Like I don't know if you can see my little thing. I'm glad to hear that we're like back in the positives for the year. And that like all of the readjusting that we did within the budget kind of worked itself out. Yeah, I was confused on one thing. You said for sponsorships, we planned on 10,000 and we only got 1,000. Why was that?
There was just maybe no interest in people wanting to sponsor our festival. Like, we had fundraising tiers that people could pay in. We got one pharmacy.
Okay.
We put the word out there to people and only got the one.
Okay, and it was just sponsoring community festival?
Yeah, I mean, that's what this whole budget was from, was sponsorships for our Halloween and spring. So.
Okay.
And what do you think for the future, Jonathan? Is that then something we could do better on in the future, or you think we just shouldn't count on that in the future?
We could do maybe a little better. So in the next year budget, I didn't plan for 10,000, but for more, because at least now we have our established tiers and system.
Mm-hmm.
So we can just spend more time on seeking them.
So with the number, I guess this is the next item. What's the number for that in the next year budget?
I put 3,000. Okay. Small stretch, but not a huge amount. There's a couple things not final with these estimated actuals. There's the bathrooms for DP. I don't have a bill yet for that. For example, we had said no max of 13,000. So, and we did 4 instead of 6. I think we had planned to do. So that might come in at let's say 9. So that eats away a little bit at the 54,000. So it's not a final 54,000, but that's the estimated actuals as of today. We'll know the actuals in a couple of weeks.
Well, thank you. Good job getting us through this year.
Yeah.
Should we move ahead?
Yes, ready to do that.
Okay, 3.2 is the 2024-2025 preliminary budget.
Okay, so I'll just, we do have 2 programs we're going to review today, but I'll give the general budget overview and then we can move on to the 2 last programs to review. So we're expecting for next year, again, it's dramatically lower, 1.9 million in revenue. That's for a few different reasons. It's, there's a lot of money not coming into the budget this year that was for the parking study, for example. So that's all gone. We don't, it's, it was a one-time situation. We had pooled a lot of money from our fund balance last year to, jumpstart things. So we're not doing that quite as much this year. This year, we're still gonna pull from our fund balance, but it's for maintaining instead of growing. So that's another reason why it's way lower. We also are gonna just plan for less from our other sources of revenue, like sales well, we're actually gonna plan for more for reservations because we've developed the system now, but we're just gonna plan for less in festival or less in sponsorships as well. So that's why it's a less number. And our revenue, our utility tax did go down to 45,000, like you saw already. We're not planning for, we never planned for any of its growth, but they didn't grow this year from last year. So there is no plus from last year. It's going to be essentially the same number. So that's our revenues, 1.9 million. Our planned expenses right now are 1.95 million, and that would mean we still have a $22,000 deficit. We can increase our spending from our general fund by 22,000 or make $22,000 worth of cuts. The default is it comes out of the general undesignated, but the budget is pretty set in terms of the different costs we have. We are still fine tuning the health insurance cost, but it shouldn't change dramatically. Another adjustment I made that was from the board retreat discussion is our project manager for community spaces, making that position full-time, but not right away, like waiting a few months before we do that. So there's budget to do it, but it's not a full year of salary. That's one of the main changes I've made since the retreat discussion. I would say that this is a very preliminary budget still. There's a good number of reasons like we've gone over before, but our public safety spending is completely up in the air. It's $300,000. We have a lot of discussions to have with UCSB and UCPD for the next version of those contracts, for example. So I can't say that this is a very final budget at this point, and we do that on purpose. We have until August. But so I have to say this is a very preliminary budget. There could be events that happen that change it, sometimes dramatically, depending on where the board's direction is to go with the funding for the other programs. We also don't have the final May revenue yet, and we also don't have the June ones at all. Things have been surprising lately. They could surprise us a lot. They could surprise us a little bit or not at all. But so that's a big factor that's not in here yet. That might clear the 22,000 on its own. It might add to it. I also added one last thing is our Dixon contractor asked to activate a part of our contract, which is to use 5% of contingency funds to finish the project. So that's in next year's budget is the last bit. We will clear out all the main contract this June, but this 15,000 will be in contingency. It's part of the contract that is able to be spent. So that's just a general practice. We got to maybe start doing more is like budgeting for that 5% contingency in our contracts, but we don't have very many contracts open next year anyways.
And what is the need for that use of contingency actually being attributed to?
To finish the project and have some more stakeholder meetings, like briefing the UCSB leadership team, for example. We did a lot. We've done a lot more than we had originally planned, especially on working with specific agencies and groups that we need to get good agreement with. So, and it's to finish drafting both the parking and mobility plans. So that's I think, yeah, there haven't been really any other changes since you've last seen this, besides the three I mentioned and the revenue that came in. So that's something to discuss today, is the 22,000, if we want to make more cuts, or if we want to draw that from fund balance. The good thing is, when we first last looked at this, and is that we were thinking we were gonna have 33,000 in fund balance. Probably gonna have like 38,000 in fund balance now, because of those two spreadsheets aren't linked, unfortunately. I'll combine them soon, but we'll probably have 38,000 in fund balance if you add in the 54,000 plus that we have now.
And this budget gives a COLA to the staff.
This has the COLA and the merit raises for everybody budgeted for. The COLA is, across the board, the merit raises are not guaranteed, but we budget for it. And yeah, so it makes also the salary budgets slightly inflated. Like, I can go fine tune it to the 2-week payroll, but we budget for their entire merit increase for a year. Sometimes they're only going to be getting it for like 8 months out of the year. But it all adds up over time.
Can you, since we're going to be talking about the compost collective and the community garden, can you go over the revenue side of both of those, just to refresh my memory?
Yeah, the community garden doesn't have any revenue.
Well, but the grant
But-
revenue, I mean, it's technically revenue.
It's expense. The grant we give to the Methodist.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I don't know what I'm saying.
It's just a flat 30,000. I can go over the exact how it's broken down, because they submitted that, but
Well, that's okay, we'll do that when we
Okay.
talk about it. But for compost,
compost, we're planning for 5,000 in sales, and that's it. And Carly has it in her presentation
oh, okay, well,
to talk about how we get to that number.
okay. I was gonna ask,
We're not planning for collection. 0 on that.
okay. Shoot, I have another question and it slipped my mind. I'll let you know if it comes back.
And yeah, our UCSB funding is not guaranteed. So 311,000 is for the public safety, but we also had planned for it to go towards the community festival spending, move out, and move out. So those two. So that's what this 440,000. This is not a final number, and I was told that now would be the good time, now that graduation is over, to try to start those negotiations now. So we should hopefully have a decision by August 13th. I mean, it's almost critical that we do. We can finalize our budget without that.
And we have a team that's gonna
Yeah.
work with you.
Yeah, Spencer's on that team, and myself, and Dr. Craig's on the team too. So, and Dr. Green. We're also taking out 10,000 for the mediation program. That's because that's what's left in the.
And Director Craig, do you have any comments or questions?
Nothing from me.
I
No,
remember
nothing from me.
my other question was because we're about to do compost and community gardens, so those are already plugged into what we're looking at right now.
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so this is as complete of a picture as we can hope to have at this point. Okay.
Yes. I mean, depending on your discussion with compost,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
community garden could change, but I just put in whatever the top number, or not the top number, but the number we're working with now.
Okay.
The new number. Right. That's it on the budget. Oh, well, do you guys have a preference on how we handle any, or what range, I guess, of deficit to absorb versus cuts? Like, right now we're doing $100,000 of reserve spending to afford the budget. We might need 122, or we could, so is there any upper tier of reserve spending that you guys have for this budget? I guess is my big question. Like, do you want to go up to 150? Do you want to do 130, 140?
Can you pull up the reserve chart?
Yeah. It's not 100% updated. It's plus 50,000. So it's instead of 444,000, it'll be, well, let's say 470. And this would be 350. So we're ending this year at, yeah, a little more than 44,000. And if we spend our 110,000 in reserves this year, or actually 100 in the 22,000 is incorporated in this, we'd have 33,000. So next year
33,000 where?
in our general undesignated reserve, if our current deficit is what we have.
So if we go on that course of action, we have 333 in the bank right now, and that'll go down to 33 in that line item.
No, we'd have 40, let's say 460,000
In undesignated general
undesignated
reserve.
reserve, and then a year from now we'd have like 350.
Okay, I heard a much smaller number than maybe.
Yeah,
And that's not
what's-
including the 1.5 million in committed reserves we have.
Yeah,
So-
but those are trickier.
Yeah. And we haven't designated a parking amount yet, but I did have a thought on a number or what we generally might need. I'll pull it up for you.
Yeah, I think that's the thing we should figure out first, and I think the board directed us to do that.
Let me pull that up. Sorry, the adjustment back from vacation isn't easy. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Now here it is. $100,000 is what we could.
I forgot the question.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry. 100,000 for the parking startup. So here's the breakdown of it. It's gonna cost $1.8 million over 3 years to implement. That's full cost. That's not counting future revenues from tickets. It will then cost 1.4 million if you take into account ticket revenue for the first 3 years. And then we could put in 100,000 per year. So it would actually be 200 full thousand, but it would be on a yearly basis. Hopefully we could plan for our budget and so this is what I had mentioned to the counties. CSD putting in 100,000 over 3 fiscal years. And hopefully then the county using the settlement funds would put in 1.1 million. And ticket revenues would make up the difference for the full cost of the first 3 years of the program. So $300,000. And we can start, we don't have to put all of it into reserve right now. I think, we could maybe put 150, for example, and use future revenue growth to, if we have.
If you think of that and you think of us spending 120 out of reserves, then that's pretty much our reserves are gone.
If we, our reserves would be almost gone. Our undesignated reserves in 3 years would be gone. That's if we
And so
commit to that.
for the next year, we wouldn't have the opportunity to draw them down to cushion us.
If we committed it to the parking study completely, yes. But there are other reserves that could you imagine this as a capital expense? You have a capital reserve of 400,000, like some of the parking study
Sure.
implementations are capital, so you could
Yeah,
say you're taking it out of that. But you have the short and long-term strategic reserves. Would you could say it comes out of the long-term strategic as a goal, but overall the reserves amount will shrink. You could say it's coming out of this other pie or this other pie, but it's going to shrink. You could even say the short-term revenue fluctuations are coming out of strategic reserves, since that's one of the reasons why it's there, is to help make up irregularities in revenue. But then the whole pie is getting smaller, even though these different pots.
and how much do we have in strategic reserves?
We have 220,000, 222,000 in short term and 675 in long term. So that's a combined almost $1 million, 900,000. And 400,000 in capital reserves. And 73,000 in structures and equipment.
So I would prefer that we allocate some of the fund balance and make a contribution towards that specific for parking. Just because we're kind of in a situation where we don't know what the county allocation is going to be.
Right.
And we have a really tall ask, so I wouldn't want to put the program's success or failure based on getting that full amount.
Yeah, it's gonna cost for 1 year, 620,000 for the first year. It's the full cost of it. So we definitely couldn't cover it ourselves at all. We will need IVCSD and the county to chip in or not do it this year.
And I didn't really understand what you were saying, Spencer, that you wanted to come out of fund balance?
Well, yes, I
Strategic
think,
reserves?
I think we had a conversation at the board, and the board said, we know there's gonna be a lot of startup costs associated with parking program. We should start to designate some of the undesignated fund balance to implement that. And I know that we also have the other reserves that we can draw from. But that said, I guess I'm just taking a conservative approach of wanting to both follow what the board asked us to do in putting some of that money away. It sounds like 150 was the number you said we could do this year.
Out of the budget
Out of the
reserves.
number that's highlighted on the screen.
But yeah, it would be coming out of either one or both, essentially.
Of reserves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I heard 100,000, and I heard 150,000, so.
It's 100,000 a year for 3 years. I mean, this is
That's
it's
our
what we've made up
negotiation
based on, yeah.
with, UCSB for the county.
Yeah, it's very, we don't have the final numbers yet from the
Yeah.
parking study of what ticket revenue might be. We're just, this was the estimate that Dixon worked with us to produce, was what the annual cost of the program will be for 3 years, and what the potential revenue could be over 3 years. So we don't know what that's any of these are going to be actually in reality is in terms of the final numbers. But this is our best guess at this moment for the cost of implementation, 620,000 for the first year. But over what I've asked the county is, could you cover most of that with the settlement money? And we put in 100,000 a year. So 150 is half of that commitment. It's not really a commitment. It's just we're trying to figure something out.
Oh, half of the commitment over 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
But I wouldn't call it. I misspoke. It shouldn't be called a commitment because it's not. But it's
An
like
offer.
more offer. Yeah.
Well, that to me just punctuates the need to do even more since it is an offer and we want to make good on our
Do even
promises.
more,
Yeah.
think of even more money coming out of reserves for this particular program.
Not
Yeah.
reserved, the highlighted number, which is the undesignated fund balance, which is different from the reserve. I think we had talked about it would look similar in the budget like the UCSB money looks, where it was there as called designated fund balance instead of undesignated because it was earmarked for specific programs.
How are you doing, Director Craig?
I'm good. I'm listening in. Yeah, I agree that we should take a conservative approach. And I also know that like we don't know exactly, or I'm pretty sure as far as I'm aware, we don't know exactly like what the conclusions around the parking study are going to look like from Dixon. Yeah, big decision to make of like how we want to allocate this, but I agree that we should take a conservative approach or err on the side of being conservative, just to give ourselves like some more wiggle room. Like if a budget year like this comes up again, or if there's another program that we're like really excited about, just to like allow for some change in the next year.
So when you both say conservative approach, could you be more like specific about what that means?
Yeah, so to me, it means that we have this undesignated fund balance, which is money that's just sitting in the bank, not earmarked for anything. We should earmark 150 of that specifically for parking program implementation. It's half of what our total
300.
promise. Well, it happens to be half of what we have now, or almost half what we have now, but it's half of what we had promised when Jonathan made the request to the county.
So why is that conservative to only budget half?
Well, so the distinction is I would prefer that we take it out of the fund balance and not out of our actual capital reserves, because those are things that, number one, we could have other opportunities that come up that we want to spend that money on. But number two, depending on how far the estimates that we've got from Dixon right now, which are super preliminary, are versus the reality of implementing the program, we may need to tap those at a later date to accomplish it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if you're talking about taking 150, where's the other 150 coming from?
Well, it's 150 over 3 years, I think is what you said, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 300 over 3 years.
Yeah.
So 150 is just us starting the fund, and then, a future year we'll need to allocate the second half.
Because you think there'll be some money that comes into us surprisingly?
We technically have it.
I mean, we could put all 300 of it there right now. It just might make it more difficult if we need to balance, because we're putting $100,000 of fund balance, is that right, into the budget this year just to balance it?
122 as of right now.
So, it's just, we're in a precarious situation with everything that we're trying to
Sure.
balance.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance that the revenue next year grows enough to cover the COLA and merit raises, or we choose, or we choose not to do those at quite the level, but
Mhm.
you need it to be, if we do the full 300,000, which isn't a bad idea, you can always undo that decision too. I mean, that's what the board said at the retreat. Maybe we don't implement it because of, what if the county says no? Then the
Yeah.
whole thing's up. We might not then need to use it, but
I mean, it just makes more sense to me that we would think about the whole thing at this point. So if it's not all coming out of undesignated fund balance, then maybe we need to say the other portion of it is gonna have to come out of capital reserves. Or whatever we say, but I think that thinking about the whole 300,000, it's like we haven't done a job.
Yeah, I see your point.
And then, obviously we could, reschedule that over time as we become more knowledgeable about what all the factors are. But at least for now, we've made a placeholder
yeah.
within our current picture about how we will manage this over time.
There is a $50,000 one-time cost, which is the LPR technology, like the license plate recognition. See, if you wanted to do at least one, used from a different fund balance, you can say it's 50,000 from capital, 250,000 from undesignated, but it's up to you. It's all the same money at the end of the day, but it's up to you how you want to say where it's coming from.
Well, the undesignated is kind of like the most precious, right?
It is, yeah, the most flexible. You can do the most with it.
And so if we're saying we need 100 or more out of there, that is a big chunk of what's in
It's a major chunk of what's in there. It's only been going down.
there.
And that's part of it's because our committed reserve
800K
requirement
a couple years ago.
is going up. So we used to have $1 million in our committed reserves. Now we have 1.5 million. So the money didn't really go away, it just moved in the accounting lines. So, but that's because of the formulas we set up. So yeah, I mean, it's going away, but it's also like part of it's spending this year, next year, but part of it is the reserve requirement just dramatically, jumped 1 year. And so a lot went into the other reserve.
Well, I would be comfortable saying that 50 of it comes from the capital reserve for the LPR.
Yeah.
And, that is a really big chunk of our undesignated.
You'd have 100,000 left, essentially, in undesignated.
So we find ourselves another year of being able to not tap reserves to balance the budget if we have another bad budget year next year.
And yeah, we don't know how this fiscal year is going to turn out.
Yeah.
All of its projection too. So it's
Right.
also to weather out next year if we need to.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, on the one hand, like, been on this committee for a bunch of years, and for years it was like that UUT just keeps going up.
It was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And then it's like you never think that it'll go down until it happens. And then
Yeah, and then plus, look at all the years where you couldn't do anything because of COVID. So.
Yeah, well, that's why we have this
Yeah.
fund balances.
Yeah,
a lot
we
of it is
do,
from the
but you hate
COVID.
to
yeah.
just like cannibalize
Unspent.
it like that.
vacant positions during that time. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think that you made a persuasive point that we should, we're gonna commit to doing this. We should put the money away. So I would be amenable to doing 50 from the,
Why only 50?
or 50 from capital and 250 from undesignated.
Why only 50 from capital?
Because the other costs are not capital costs.
50,000 is the one-time cost for the license plate recognition. the other
And that's
costs.
the only thing you're seeing in the project that's actually capital.
That's what Dixon told.
Well, there are experts, so
Yeah.
I would definitely pay attention to what they say.
And maybe, when we get to a point of when we have more information, we could reassess if we needed to, but
yeah,
Sure.
those capital costs, maybe the settlement funds, they feel like they want to use it on that. They have a preference for that. We don't know. But either way, we can't afford this alone, and we definitely
I
need.
know, that's very clear. isn't
Yeah,
it?
I mean, it's
We can
1.8
barely
million.
afford to be a meager partner.
Yeah, it's 1.8 million over 3 years without
I know.
the ticket revenue.
God, those
And we don't
numbers
know what the ticket revenue is gonna be. We only have
shocked me.
guesses based on how many cars illegally park. They might stop illegally parking, and then the ticket revenue goes down. Then we have to subsidize the annual costs. So that might be something we think about too, is like revenue growth, like pocketing away revenue growth. I know other agencies do that. They say, the first 5% of growth is all going towards this
Too bad for
predetermined.
you guys who have to run for reelection.
Well-
After we become the ticketers.
oh, yeah.
Boy.
It'll be full swing by the time I'm up.
The year two. Okay, so I put 250 into the assigned fund balance and named it parking, so we'll create that. And then the 50 for the capital, it just sits in here
Yeah, sure.
in the
But at
400.
least we have a placeholder to remind us what we're
I'll
thinking.
just make a comment, so I'll always have that 50 for parking LPR. And then the undesignated will then be 83,000, maybe 120,000. I haven't factored in the new and estimated actual.
Okay, and so that presumes us taking 100,000 out of undesignated.
250, 250,000
No, that's for that project, but I mean to
Oh.
balance our operating budget.
from
yeah.
this year.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
next year.
Yes.
That presumes 100, not 120.
No, this presumes 120,
Okay.
but it doesn't include the 50. It doesn't include a
That we
portion
can
of the
throw
up
50
from this
into
year.
it from this year.
I'd say 30. Yeah.
Yeah, let's not push it.
So you can imagine this 83,000 being 100,000. Like
I
it's,
can imagine it being 200.
It'll
I'm
probably
a very
be-
good imagination.
yeah, it'll probably be 100,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Olivia, how are you doing
Next.
out there?
This sounds good to me. I'm following along on the spreadsheet. All your guys' logic makes sense. This is one of those conversations that I feel like I just don't have a ton of great input on. But everything, like the logic around why we're doing what we're doing, all sounds good to me.
Well, good for you for being able to follow from a distance. I think that's gonna be very challenging, so thanks.
Yeah, I want to just
Nice,
clarify.
because Jonathan, like I can click his little icon and it'll take me to where he is on the spreadsheet.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I just want to, because I want to make sure I fully understand it too. Or I'm gripping this as it's 100,000. It's 83 is 100,000 after taking the 22,000 additional out of reserves. So it doesn't consider more cuts. It considers this current 100,000 plus 120, 100,000 plus 22,000.
Yeah, and personally, I think it would look nicer if we took 100 out and had 100 like anticipated for the end of next year. But I do think we've been very austere. I think people have come up with some, very judicious cuts, and that we're preserving a lot of the wonderful programs that we have while really cutting back. And I don't feel like we have a lot of capacity to cut back more. Although obviously, if our revenue picture is changing in the future, we'll have to face that fact and do it. But yeah, I'm comfortable with the 120 myself.
And we've made
But let's not go to 150.
no. And no,
Let's hold the line there.
that's good information for me in terms of what I work on for the final budget.
Yeah, I'm
with the
starting to get a little
numbers.
twitchy.
Yeah, so the
Yeah,
one,
I mean, when you think about if we have to balance the budget with fund balance next year, then I kind of plan where you are, where I think that where we are right now with the 110, 120 is like the max that I feel comfortable, because I don't want to just kick the can down the road
No.
and then have to be in a worse situation next year.
we've made $83,000 in cuts for this year already.
Well, that's sobering.
And that's not counting us having cut the community plan piece of our budget, which we've never spent. I mean, so that's $83,000 in real cuts to all the programs,
Yeah,
except public safety, which is the same, but it's kind of factored out because it is funded by the ECSB contribution. Hopefully.
In a roundabout way, the community plan money has gone into parking, and we can't actually do the community plan stuff
For
if
sure.
we don't do parking.
That's
So it all makes sense.
It's all, yeah, it is all in the same pool. Oh, yeah, it's all the same project at the end of the day. So every
Okay.
program has made a cut, and
and are there more things that we want to talk about for the overview of next year's budget, or?
no, I mean, I just want to caveat that it's still really preliminary. We
Sure.
still have to finalize the revenues. We still have to make sure we have all the different expenses fine-tuned to the most. I mean, we have really good numbers in here, but I would say there's still small variations that can happen. But I will take your guys' feedback into account. I know where I can, if there are required costs that come up higher, I know where I can move things lower to make up for it within like the range of what you're comfortable pulling out of the reserve.
Jonathan's telling us he's mad.
Yeah, no, not magic. Just
You keep it up. We like, that's what we like to hear.
we will just, so yeah, it's very temporary budget because August will be
Yeah.
a good amount of change.
Okay, well, I feel like, you know, as much as we have some unknowns here, that you've done a really good job of, you know, pulling together a very well-reasoned estimate about what we think it'll look like.
Yeah.
And I feel confident to move ahead and knowing that we're gonna have to adjust on the fly as we go.
Yeah, we have to be flexible for sure.
As in life always. Okay.
We'll do the garden since it's a simpler one, and then we'll move to compost, but the proposed budget for next year is the same. It's gonna be $30,000, most of it for staffing, some supplies, some water, and they have 3,400 left over from past grant they want to use. There is a bigger cost out there, which is the new garden plot of land, but Katie explained to us, I'm trying to find it in here. I think it's actually a separate
It's a
attachment.
beautiful plan.
Yeah, that's gonna cost a lot of money that we don't even know the actual cost yet, but it's gonna be tens of thousands of dollars. And that could be a capital expense once we know it, or she says she's gonna fundraise and find other funding sources. So if we made a contribution to it, our capital budget is a reasonable place to look at, but it's not gonna be in the budget at all. It's not gonna be in the planned budget because it'll be a while until we know what the costs are. And I don't think we'll know by August. It's a chance. I'll talk with them more to see if we can know by August, but I don't think that's gonna be the case. So it didn't sound like that. So this is 30,000 to keep things status quo.
I think their budget looks great for this year. I am like a little bit worried about not knowing what the true cost is going to be, but you got to spend the money and get the architect to tell us what the cost is going to be. And I'm happy that they're talking about raising money to help with that, because we don't, as we've just talked about, have a whole lot to go around. And I think at the end of the day, this has been a great partnership. Any new expenses are all going to be competing with all the other stuff that we do. So I think as soon as we do have an update on what that cost is going to be, even if it's mid-year, I would kind of like to just have the board get a update on what it is, so that we can start preparing for that.
Yeah, no, we'll get it right away.
And the model that we're working on here is that we're expected to be a major contributor on into the future. They're not like trying to morph into something where they're self-sustaining without our input.
For the operations of the garden,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's
That's
we're
steady
fully
forever.
subsidizing it. I mean, not 100% subsidizing it,
Yeah.
but for the most part, we're making both happen. There are some other funding sources. I can't tell you exactly what they are, but there's some UCSB work
Mhm.
study, I think, involved. And Katie, for example, she's putting in her time, so she's not charging us for her time working on it. So there are other costs that we're not paying for, but these are the main staff that tend to the gardens. So we're paying for it, and the supplies and water for them.
Okay. Any comments, Director Craig?
Didn't hear anything. It looks like she disconnected, possibly from Zoom.
Oops.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so sorry. The phone is kind of confusing. Just every time I want to mute, I dial *6, and I don't know if I'm muted or unmuted. But I agree that the plan looks great. Obviously, this is something like I'm very interested in, but also we are just like not in the financial position to make a decision about right now. So yeah, that's all for me.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Carly to talk about compost collector budget.
Awesome. So the first page has the budget that is basically the things highlighted in yellow are just pending this conversation, sort of.
Could you make it a little bigger, Jonathan? I was never able to see it
Yeah,
in
yeah.
advance.
This is the
And
biggest.
now I
it gets.
can't see it because I
I think
Yeah,
did this,
that's good.
and did it get updated within the last 2 hours?
Yes.
Okay.
So I added in
Surprise.
I added some marketing expenses that I wasn't sure if we should include because it was over what Jonathan had in here, but I'll just start by going over maybe the actuals of this last year, just to
Which is,
Here, I can go to the estimated actuals. Here we go. I'll make this bigger.
I can get closer.
well, just on the composting side of things, the biggest change we made this quarter was, or this past year, from our original plan was we plan to only use about half the food scraps we were collecting for our own compost piles, but due to some efficiencies we made in the recipe, we changed that to all the food scraps we were collecting. So 140 houses we're composting at our sites instead of them going to
Margaret.
exactly.
Oh, that's
So
very good.
that was great for
Yeah,
the
that's
environment and
super.
to just have the final product in greater volume because we were able to build our piles once we.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's very exciting.
Yep, and we were able to fit that in with the pretty much, or I think it was a little bit under either way, composting budget, the composting plan in terms of operations went just as planned with the original volume per week.
And you had some experts helping you with stuff, and was that part of how you were so successful, that they really gave good advice?
Yeah, definitely. They helped us just like set up a lot of sort of like regulatory kind of measures that really helped us just like streamline things like our recipe, for example. And then we also found like a new source of browns that we get for free still. And we don't get it dropped off, but it's still in Isla Vista. So that is, and it's a lot higher quality than the browns we were using before. So everything's going great there. We're also able to like really put in place the 12 stalls, like use all 12 stalls with this, just like as we're developing, sort of like we don't have the complete 6 weeks down every single batch yet, but it's been getting better and better, and we're at 6 to 8 weeks right now. So, and then events and team meetings and communication, that portion of the budget was also the same as planned. And so the dirt riders were all at around 6.5 hours per week, which we had budgeted. And then we spent a lot more on equipment than we thought, and a lot less on the contractor.
And are we seeing that on the screen here?
Yeah,
think
Carl,
it's
I'm
the
showing
last-
the actuals for the
Oh, I see
high
right
level
there,
of the
sorry.
program,
I
but
forgot
not the per tasks that you're doing.
That makes
so.
sense. I was on the second tab, my bad. But the first tab is better.
Yeah, but I have more updated numbers
Yeah.
on this, sorry. So this is the actual estimated actuals for compost plant, the 236,000 spent.
So, we spent a lot more on equipment than we
Yeah.
planned. And that was mainly due to, just the sale of compost, like trying different bags and having some, errors happen with that, like our bags getting moldy, so we had to buy, these special liners to put inside, and just a lot of trial and error there. And then also like the actual bagging itself, like putting the material in the bags. We just tried a lot of different ways of doing that as cheap as possible, like in manually. And we have a pretty good method down now, but we hope to like just keep kind of using what we have to come up with faster ways to do it, because it's still sort of tedious. And then we also just did our improvements that we did with the contractor, which was like putting in the PVC pipes into the piles, like as lungs, to help get more oxygen to the compost and guarantee that it won't go anaerobic, which is like when they fail. So, and then we spent a lot less on the consultant than we thought, which was mainly just put into that equipment I was talking about. And then we also did most of the installation of that. Let's see, can we go to, or is there any questions, I guess, on the actuals from this past year?
How many temporary staff?
10,
10, okay.
or I guess 11, including our marketing coordinator.
Okay.
And we also spent a lot less on her than we thought, just because it was just, we hired later in the year than we planned to. But she's been doing the budgeted amount of hours per week, and she's been accomplishing a lot. So I guess for actuals, it'd be maybe good to just highlight that we collected 12,000 pounds of food scraps last quarter, and then 12,000 the quarter before, bringing us to 105,000 pounds of food scraps diverted from the landfill since 2017, since our establishment. So we've passed the 100,000 mark. So that's big.
And then in addition to the actual products that you're creating, it seems like you're doing a lot of community education in this issue. Could you tell me like what that looks like? I mean, are you doing workshops, and how often, and how many people?
Yeah, we've I don't have those totals in front of me right now, but we've done, like, this year did a lot of volunteer days and tabling at other organizations' events. I feel like that's what we spent a majority of our time doing. Plus we had like the collection relaunch festival and our pumpkin smash that IVCC hosts. But we also spent a lot of hours on Earth Day, Earth Month pretty much. We attended a lot of events, including the Downtown Earth Day, which was really awesome just because we were able to expand our audience to the broader area. And then we've been hosting Sifting Sundays, which have been a success. We've had a lot of like teams reach out, and so there'll be like a whole team or something like that that signs up ahead of time, and then we don't have to worry as much about marketing the event. So those have been going great, and we want to.
What does that mean actually? What are you sifting?
Oh, we sift the finished compost. So like that's one of the reasons why there's a lot less volume in the finished product than the starting, because you sift out like larger materials that haven't been completely finished, like pieces of like sticks and stuff like that. And then we put those back in the new piles because they serve as like an inoculant, like if you think of like a fallen log in a forest. Yeah.
And when I have been to your events and you were giving out worm buckets,
Oh yeah.
it seemed like there was a lot of enthusiasm about that. And are you still doing that?
Yeah, there is a lot of enthusiasm around our worm bin workshops. We've done a few this year, and we do it in collaboration with Department of Public Works and Bill Palmisano, who is a local expert and has helped us a lot. And yeah, we gave out 40 free worm bins this year. And yeah, people seem to have a high interest in that. And we've even considered like the possibilities in the future of like having some sort of fee associated with like that sort of workshop, because we're giving away free bins that we make. And I think that like we've talked to some storefronts around here who have wanted to host us for a workshop like that, and then asked how much we wanted to charge. So that's my market research in that area.
And then just because I had been donating buckets myself, when I've been out to St. Michael's, I see you have a lot, or when I was bent last there, I should say, there was a lot of buckets. So those are all going to be worm buckets, and you have more inventory than you need right now?
No, we're working on organizing a better storage section, but our main priority is using all those buckets as like measuring cups sort of for building the pile. So each week they rotate out. And so they're all full of like, we measure each ingredient by 5 gallons. And then one day of the week, Fridays, it's kind of fun. We put it all together in a specific order. And yeah, that's just the system we have right now, because it will get up to 40 to 50 pounds per bucket. So it's like thinking about a larger bin, it's difficult, even though it would be better aesthetics wise. But we could think about storing them in our shed, but that's what we've been using to help us make the perfect recipe, and then also be able to account really well for volume throughout the process.
Thanks. Are there any questions or comments about the budget here?
On the temporary employees, so the one is for marketing, then there's the 10 that are their time. Can you just give me an overview of how their time is split? How many are doing collection? How many are turning the piles? I'm sure some do both.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know if there's a restroom anywhere around here?
There might be around the corner.
Next door?
Yeah, and there's one in the park.
Okay.
So yes, on this sheet, I have a breakdown of each like area of operations for the extra labor positions. So, some of our older staff that have been with us, like through the pause and everything like that, just like I asked them their preference in the beginning. So we have, and it's been working out well, but very few of them do one or the other, but most of them, like all of our new hires, do both. So they'll do like 1 collection shift, 1 compost shift, or 2 collection shifts, 1 compost shift. Or yeah, a combination. I always ask them, and then I like do the schedule and try to make it work. the best I can with their preferences. And then, so we have our collection shift. It's 2 hours long. They're just like texting their houses a reminder, biking around, getting the buckets, processing those food scraps into the 5-gallon buckets like I was talking about, and then washing all their collection buckets, and then logging their data. And all of those activities are pretty evenly broken down. We've noticed one really major area of efficiency that like potential is some houses that consistently leave their or don't put their bucket out, and like the dirt riders will send them a second reminder, or they'll text like a few minutes into their shift and say, we just remembered, sorry, and so they'll go back. But yeah, that just takes up a lot of time, just so especially if they're trying to communicate with the houses that forgot, but we always try to give them the chance. But I think just we have a list of policies for the houses, and I think just maybe running those by the policy committee, or if we need to again, I don't know if that already happened before, but just being able to enforce those, like I think would help our efficiency in terms of our collection shifts, and also be able to allow more people the opportunity to participate in the collection if some people aren't doing it right. And then another, like a few other areas is like offering bi-weekly, which we had a survey question about on our form this past year, and we saw interest in people signing up for bi-weekly. Some people only give us just like a few pounds, whereas some people give us like 20 pounds. And then also just continuing to, or being able to say to houses what size they get if they're like an extremely low volume, because we have our 2 different sizes, which we've been doing. But a lot of times houses will say they want one and maybe they just don't think to switch it, and they could use a smaller one. So yeah, that's collection. Composting is drop-off bins, servicing those, which are at both of our compost locations, feeding our worm bins, which just is like negligible time, which is why I included it in there. Browns collection, that's just biking over we get them from West Campus, building our compost pile, cleaning, maintaining the site and equipment, and then flipping piles and taking temperatures, so like maintaining the composting piles. And that collection comes out to an annual cost of $19,000 and compost $23,000 with all of those tasks listed. And then marketing coordinator, we have budgeted for $9,000, and she divides her time up between, she'll be doing less market research now that we have our Gaucho Creative report, but partnership development, she spends a lot of time on and is doing great at. Product development, which Richard has a big role in as well. Marketing content creation, which we're just sort of starting, and she's been doing. I'm really excited to have a few posts come out that we've been working on. And then bagging, delivery, and then she comes to our team meetings too, to stay informed in any meetings that she needs to come to. Let's see. And then just to go over really quickly the options for potential like ways we can reduce costs due to the current restraints is the ones I was talking about with collection, and then the major one being just reducing the number of households we're collecting from, which I have 2 scenarios at the very top. One, like column F and row 13, but I have 120 houses and then 140, which we're at now. So we have 58,000 for what we're at now, and then 54 for 120, and then we could keep going down from there. If we'd like to look at that, I think the goal is to get to around 50,000, which is what Jonathan had in the budget. And then another thing is to switch to bi-weekly team meetings, which I think is definitely doable and would just be efficiency improvement, which I have accounted for at the top. And then another idea I had was just to like put a focus on like have volunteer days more often and then have them doing things like turning piles and stuff like that because it's stuff that's like fun for your first few times kind of thing, you know, and like can for some of the staff like, you know, just all year can get tiring during certain times. So that is, I think, a major way we could reduce costs and then also be able to engage with the community and educate. And then another option in which Jonathan filled me in might not be what we choose, but just less educational events or tabling with other orgs, just maybe being more choosy on which events we want to table at or which organizations we want to collaborate with. And then, and then Richard could divert some more of his hours to maintenance related or operations related tasks, and then would just do less of like the product development side of things. And just to keep into or like to put it in perspective, he made the soil mix or potting mix that we just released like pretty much independently. So he's just like really, I would consider him an expert in the field. And so that time's a little bit crucial, but that's an option. And then, let's see. Yeah, I think that is it, unless you have anything else you want me to talk.
If you want to talk about the numbers for the advertising.
Oh,
and
yeah.
equipment.
So I just did a breakdown of the cost of our bags. And then this is if we were bagging every single like last like bit of compost that we create over this next year. So I mean, if this is the max cost, and I think that there's a likely chance it's a little less than this as we're still developing. But I just did that number of bags, and then that amount of revenue too, just to look at on this spreadsheet for like what the max amount we could make is if we sold every one of those bags.
Carly, you have 13,000 here, but in this spreadsheet you have 5,400 for marketing.
Oh, that was my bad. I added the marketing coordinator, the 9,000 at the end.
Okay.
So then, yeah, on the annual budget, the first tab I have just the bagging costs, the labor associated with that. All right, I need to not include that because Jonathan and I decided, or was updated that we're gonna potentially include the marketing coordinator position in our labor costs. So I don't need to include the bagging since that's in her role. So it could just be just the 2,600 for bags is the estimated cost for that. And then I have on here just some more options, which is like stickers, labels for like getting our labels printed on nicer paper, and then which we're using the office paper right now, which is working fine, and then just like professional prints of educational material. And all of that together would be 3,000.
Yeah, and we had it in the main budget as.
800, because I think
as
there's cost
two-
of bagging twice on here.
We had put 2,000 originally, so we might need more to just make the sales themselves.
So this is still a little bit in flux. I guess we can tell because the numbers changed in the last hour.
Yeah. I think, Carly, I think you undid some of the spreadsheet. If you could revert that.
Can you just go back for a sec, Carly?
One undo. Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
So it's a,
So
it's a
a little
flux
fine
of,
tuning that needs to happen in this area.
it's just $1,400.
Can we look at the main proposal again, not the detail? Can you scroll over so that I can see the estimated? Yeah, there.
Estimated actuals I have enough. It's just, sorry, let me grab that for you. It's 58,000.
And so, with the marketing, I mean, I think we kind of need to keep that, because if we want it to be a viable product and we want to set the sales up for success, seems like it's almost a sunk cost to me. We got it.
Yeah, that's not the coordinator, it's just the bags essentially, plus some of the materials.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
well, we definitely have to keep that then.
Yeah.
That's a huge sunk cost.
And to be fair, I put the max number of bags we could need, so like, it shouldn't be that much. And also, if you were to go to the next equipment tab, I have my total as, I was able to reduce it down to 1,100, because there was some stuff on there from like one-time costs from last year.
So we could take, I mean, I think it's probably safe to keep 2,000, it's only 1,000 difference. You could reduce this to 1,200 based on what Carly's estimates are. That would save $800. We make this 1,200.
And so I think the big thing here is probably the extra help.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this is based on continuing to have the 9 part-time positions plus the 1 part-time marketing coordinator.
It's not necessarily 9, because we have people leave, right? So,
Yeah,
They
we did. Right now, we actually have 5 total.
so we could change their hours per person. It's more, you remember how we said we're gonna do it, what they can deliver, like number of hours, not people, since
Mhm.
that is more up to change.
Yeah,
It's a perfect.
that's a
side.
separate thing. We should convert everything we do to like FTE so that
Yeah,
it all makes more sense.
yeah.
Um,
But this is like where, I mean, these are more than 50,000, but it's like it's made up of these hours per month
Mhm.
that we're able to, and that's what we did for Ivy Beautiful too, is hours per month we can achieve.
and with the number, so this is based on us going down to 120 households.
Well, yeah.
The second column is.
This one, yeah, this is 120, or right, Carly, 120, Yeah. the 54,000.
Yep, 120.
And do you think if we told you you need to do that, you could hit it through just like attrition of households, like people that move away?
Or firing
Yeah.
ones who don't follow the
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah, that was a separate question. I was gonna ask you if you
There
fire
would not have
households.
to be anyone kicked off, like we'll.
Okay.
Because we'll have to, like we do most years, like market the wait list, or like people to sign up again each year people move away, because a lot of times the upperclassmen will hear about the compost collective like more likely. So we always have a lot of people move away, which we did this year. So that won't be a problem, and I can do some more numbers if you want on less houses, like 100. Did you want me to look at that?
Would you be able to accomplish 100 without dropping people?
Yeah.
We had put in, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. So in the budget you looked at already, the 4,000 was in there already with the 22,000 deficit. We already had the 4,000 for the bags and all that. And if you can fine tune that down more, and you can bring this down more, but you're doing hundreds at that point out of 1 million, so it's not
Right.
a lot. But the extra help was at 50. So if you wanted to go up to the 55, that 22,000 will become 27,000. And again, things can change with the revenues. It's not all final numbers, but just so you know, the advertising is taken, or the marketing, the bags are taken into account already. It's really the number we're looking at is 50 or 55 on here. Or somewhere in between, or is it the mix of these? You could say cut the marketing coordinator. We said we shouldn't do that. You could say less households, the compost costs, I think, are more stagnant, or they're more
They're
Yes.
more stagnant.
Yeah.
But also to think about like, the fact we had like half of our staff, the ones that left were all, at $18 an hour because of, they had been there for more than a year. So that made, a big difference. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up, but
yeah, it's hard to judge
the,
that.
and then the compost is pretty stagnant, but like if we like wanted to prioritize like just us being like focusing, I guess, on efficiencies there, we could definitely make it happen. Just through me and Richard's time of doing those developments. Probably down to like if we were at 120 households, like in the range of 23 hours to 26 hours per week, and in this budget it's at 29 hours per week compost.
So it could go down
It
by
could go down.
1,000 or so, a couple thousand.
And with Richard, like if Richard was prioritizing more of his time on the composting each week, like the operations
Yeah.
themselves, that would make a big difference.
Yeah, which is already salary we budgeted for already,
Mhm.
so. So you're saying we could work with the 50, potentially, the 1,500.
I think so, yeah.
But then you guys can also say, you can give direction on like 50 with less houses, 50 with more of our permanent staff working on it. There's also that. You can tell us like, go down to
Sales.
100 houses instead of 120. And then have more, keep the composting the same. That's, I guess, more of a staff decision too. You will work with what you give us. But if you have preferences on how we spend the money, it's important to hear.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't feel the need to go and give direction about the way that you run the program in terms of the number of household. I do feel the need, obviously, the finance committee, we got to set the number. And the way I approach this is this has been a tough year, and with all the programs, I guess, like, to me, I'm trying to see how can we tighten our belt and how can we do it in a way that doesn't impact the program majorly. But also I think that it would not be in line with that if we had the cost increase for this item in particular, since this is the thing that can be most in flux, go up. So I know 54,000 is, it's only 4,000 or $5,000 more than what we currently have, but it does give me heartburn just because that's not how we've approached the other programs. So, I mean, I'm really encouraged by what you're saying about like using volunteers more to do some of the things like turning the piles, and maybe that frees up more hours that can be used for either collection or other things, so that you can kind of do the same amount with a little bit less, I guess is how I'm kind of thinking of it.
And it won't be a lot less because we made it happen this year on 58,000. Is our estimated actual. I mean, I can't give you that as a hard. We're not gonna have much more salary spent in the next 2 weeks, so.
There's like,
yeah.
there's only a few people on this team right now, and the last few weeks are always the slowest.
So this might even be 57 or 56 estimated actually.
And to be fair, it's like, there's a lot of areas of potential like efficiency where it's just hard to like estimate those like numbers, but this past year, we've just been developing like everything pretty much. So I just imagine that that the number will change a lot, especially if we're thinking about like intentionally, trying to not waste any extra time. Just like, focusing on sales and then improving and education. Because our Gaucho Creative Report, the results that we took from it, or one of the main kind of takeaways was that like education is gonna, drive the sales, especially like educational materials and experiences we're able to offer. So I think it will definitely come back around as a benefit, the costs we spend on that stuff.
I guess you're saying here, Carly, that there's a potential for more sales than what we're projecting, but you're putting here 15,000 essentially, or net profits of 16,000 potential in sales.
I just was,
Yeah, if we sell everything.
if we, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was just crunching the numbers based on our like more accurate estimates of volume.
So that's a high
It sounds
number.
like we've, worked a lot of the bugs out and, we know what we're doing and we have some efficient systems. So I would think that we'll see some really good results in that area.
Maybe we'll know by the end of the summer.
Yeah.
When some of our store sales, how these go.
Yeah.
We have 2 stores now, so.
We sold half our 40 bag. We sold 20 bags at the co-op last time I checked a few days ago. So it's
Oh,
pretty
wow.
exciting.
That's great.
That's great.
And that's over what, like a couple weeks period of time?
2 or 3
Yeah, I
weeks.
believe 2 weeks. And something I think maybe helped was we utilized like the houses we text for collection, and in our final text we just mentioned that accomplishment, and then tried to motivate people to close the loop. So that was exciting.
So maybe that's another question for me. So with the deal with the co-op or any other retailer, are they buying the bag products from us at a cost and then they sell it? And once we've sold it to them, then that's when we make money, or do we make money when it gets sold at the point of sale at the store?
Point sale.
Okay.
So, and then we have 2 different prices here. We have our retail and wholesale pricing, which hasn't been updated with the Gaucho creative results yet. But so I split each one into like as if we sold half retail, half wholesale, just for this scenario, like just to get an idea. But yeah, we also like just based on what I know have just it's half the cost or half the price retail versus wholesale. So we're selling it to them for a cheaper price. But yeah, that's definitely flexible, the price point as well.
Yeah, you can see the unit cost is 57 cents, not counting our labor.
Of the bag.
Yeah, the bag is 57 cents. We're selling it for $2.50. So $2, and then part of it's our labor in generating that.
Very flexible. And like I think that we will like we've just been doing a lot of test sales, and we still have a lot to learn about like what volume people want, and then how people store them and all that kind of stuff. So but one thing we have noticed is just how much of a greater demand potting soil or potting mix has than compost due to the educational difference. And I think that that's just something we can, like, I'm glad we have the potting mix, and because it helps us stretch out the volume of compost we have. And I think there's a lot of potential with selling compost once we are able to educate people on the magic.
Yeah.
So
I want to buy a bunch of
Yeah.
Christmas presents.
they're pretty cute. They honestly look like
They're
edible for some
adorable.
reason. They remind me of, I don't know, but yeah, we are playing around with our colors and stuff too. If you want a custom bag, we can custom color.
That sounds expensive.
We
You
have
need to just
No.
do it in bulk.
we've been doing hand printing of our bags with our t-shirt like stamp, and so that's been super easy and just like way cheaper than printing the bags themselves. We can't put stickers on the fabric bags we have, so just been playing around with what we have, and there's a lot of areas.
Nice. So, Director Craig, any comments?
Nothing much from me. I'm glad to hear about like all of the like opportunities that we have within the compost collective. I think that's really great. In terms of budget, I do think, like everyone else has concluded, the extra help is a good thing to look at adjusting. Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad to hear things are going well, and I'm excited to see like how the efficiency stuff does continue to change as we kind of like settle into the program a little bit more.
Just to note, with this setup, the 50,000, the compost does have a growth amount from last this year. Just so you guys know, we're saying every program's getting cut, and there are cuts within the program, but overall is going to be higher costs or slightly higher.
And
same cost essentially.
And the driver of that is bringing on another employee.
No, it's just the salary and benefit growth. The cuts are not as big. You know, none of the other programs had salary and benefits get cut. It's just they had more cuts throughout the rest of their budgets. Like the
So this program is mostly salaries and benefits. whereas
exactly.
That's not true for
Yeah,
all.
like Ivy Beautiful got contracting cut, and C-Click Fix, big chunks that were,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
you know, they went away quickly. Whereas this, Compost doesn't have contracts. Same with the community spaces. We cut at the professional services and one-time equipment, furniture costs, things like that. So those were big pots of money that were. So yeah, like community spaces, this cut's weird because we moved salaries around, but you know, it's essentially a cut of like 70,000.
Yeah, and we raised a bunch of, we projected a lot more revenue from the fee.
Yeah, no, that's also hopefully, well, we'll see what happens with that, but possibly 25,000.
So are you looking for more direction from us?
And if you guys are ready with this, we can take it to the board as a preliminary approval. We're just gonna go in knowing it's 22,000 extra deficit than we originally told them. But it's keeping, you know, most of our services the same. There are changes to service, less services in some areas, but most of it is efficiencies or like, you know, classes people weren't really attending at the community center, for example. C-Click Fix something people weren't really using. So a lot of the cuts were not, no one's gonna lose necessarily. Even the compost households, it's people who've left.
Mhm.
So there's not a big impact to people. So
Yeah, personally, I would like to see a slowdown in how many households we collect from,
Mhm.
and also more rigor in enforcing rules. That,
Okay.
you know, they're holding up their end of the bargain and not creating a lot of extra work for us by flaking.
All of
Yeah.
the rules too.
Yeah.
That's a big one. And
Yeah.
to think about like our revenue, like growth potential, like we've been doing so much like development work rather than like actual like on the ground like sales. Like for example, we just like this last week named our products, and I told Spencer, but it's kind of exciting. I brought the bags. It's People's Potting Mix and Community Compost.
So they're adorable.
So like something like that, I feel like will actually kind of make a significant difference with marketing, because something we've been talking about is people like being confused on the difference. So just the names I think will be big, and it was like, yeah, it was just a hard decision sort of, but Jillian came up with People's potting mix, and I love it so much.
Yeah, it's very
Thank you.
nice.
So it might be more than we anticipated.
So having heard what Jonathan just said, well, I have a general comment and then an idea. So it seems like, whereas the strategy for the program when it first started, when we first took it over in 2020, was our goal is to expand the amount of households served. As we brought you on with your expertise, you've really focused on the quality of the product so that we're not essentially greenwashing and being like, oh, look at all the things that we're doing, but the quality of it is not as really up to standards. Now that we're starting to look at selling the product, it seems like whereas in the past, like the resource that we really wanted was a lot more food scraps, we don't need that as much now. Because I think when I look at this and I think about the sustainability of the program, not even just this year, but like 5 years out, I think bringing the the amount of food scraps that come in more in alignment with the amount of product that ends up going out and getting sold is like what we need to be working towards. So if that does mean less households, that's what it means. If it means ending up collecting more product from fewer households, or more households for your product, whatever is efficient for your workflow, that's up to you to figure out, I think. But I really do think that in the long term, those things need to come more into alignment for the program to continue going. I think is what my thinking is.
That's a great point. Yeah.
And then the second idea that I had was hearing you say that about how there's been a lot of upfront time just trying to figure out the very basics of bringing a product to retail. I know that I was saying, well, I really want to, I wouldn't want to cut the marketing person because it seems like we need them to roll this out. But if a lot of that groundwork has been done this year, do you think that you would be able to absorb that if the marketing person went away?
Well, one thing that I think has been just kind of like just a question is like delivering large amounts of product is difficult, and like thinking about long term, like just the possibility of a vehicle. I hate to say that right now because I know it's just not in the picture right now, but a vehicle like would replace the need, I guess, for a marketing person, whereas a marketing person with a car is very helpful for me not doing that and being able to put my hours elsewhere. But I think it's possible. I think it's possible without a marketing coordinator, especially because we are kind of like strengthening our like, I guess okay, never mind, sorry. But I think it is possible, or just a reduction in hours. It's just helpful to have the person who's doing the back and forth communication with the storefronts, and like keeping track of the stock, and also like, for example, like some of our labels fell off at the co-op, so like she replaced those, like small things like that add up with just like the basic operational time. But I could definitely replace some of the higher level things I do with that. And then thinking about like if I could make one more quick comment, like our mission being like, I think that the reduction in households doesn't harm our mission, because our mission being to like provide a composting service, and I think and also reduce waste in Isla Vista. I think we're like really promoting more the hierarchy of like waste reduction, or the closed loop, where food is being returned to soil here and by selling. And so I think just shooting for that, like you're saying, even balance of inputs and outputs, costs, and then what we're making with the sale of our product is like our main way to accomplish our mission, and then be sustainable as an organization.
So that's good to know. I guess what the I guess it doesn't matter. So this is really in the details of the program, because the line item that we set is just for extra help from labor, and how you spend that and divvy it up based on what positions is a programmatic thing. So I guess what I was going to ask was if we had to make even additional cuts, because we're going to bring this to the board, and we're going to tell the board we're $20,000 in the hole, even more than we thought that they would be. If we had to do either a reduction in the hours for the dirt rider and compost staff, or the marketing coordinator, what is easier to absorb? We don't really need an answer now, I think, because it sounds like we're going to bring this to the board, but I think it's a good thing to be thinking about, because I think it's definitely hard to bring the top line number to the board and have it be not that much less, considering all the other programs that got cut, just for equity's sake.
That sounds great. Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. I think that this budget is totally doable and we'll try our best to make it even more efficient over the year.
Thank you for working on this. I know this has been not the greatest of weeks.
It's not the greatest of spreadsheets, so I'm sorry about that.
It's
but-
okay.
But thank you so much.
And we hope you're not working as many excess hours as
No,
you were the
yep.
last time we checked in.
Definitely not the normal amount of hours.
Well, good. Good.
Richard's been a huge, just changed everything, and Jillian too. Them together, we're selling compost, so it's super exciting. Really fun, and also Richard's taking over most of like staff management, so that's just another huge thing off my plate too, and allows me to like focus on the higher level stuff too. Yeah.
That's
All
about
right.
it.
I think we made it through our agenda.
Long one
That was a
today.
long one for
Yeah.
us, definitely. So our next meeting will take place on July 10th, but may be rescheduled to a later date,
Mhm.
since we'll be so exhausted from this meeting still.
We might not have enough information for like that, really, so,
I'm feeling exhaustion.
yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out, and I'll adjourn this meeting. Thanks.
Thank you.